had the opportunity. But today we're going to talk a little bit with the panel about cybersecurity, some real practical things about what they're doing and maybe ideas for you as well. So we'll get started. I'm going to introduce first Sean Quigley, and he is, do you want to raise your hand? There you go, okay. And Sean is from Premier Health, and he's the Senior VP of IT. And he has an expertise which includes evaluating risks related to the ongoing business. And he also has led security transformation within Premier Health, which all of us know anytime you're doing anything like that, that's just a huge job. And I think Meredith did a great job expressing all those things to us today. And he holds an engineering degree from the University of Dayton. So Sean, we welcome you. And then we have Brian Black, who is currently with St. Elizabeth Healthcare. Previously, he was the CISO at Christ, but he has years of experience doing, setting up a security program, doing the policies, procedures, doing data loss protection. And so I think we're going to get some really good information just from the fact that he has such a wide variety of background. So we welcome you as well. And then I just want to re-welcome Brian back up here. And I had the pleasure to be with Brian on a Chime panel this past, about a month ago up in Cleveland for Chime, which is a CIO forum. And, after today, I can just tell you, he has such a great methodical process in place that, I think, when you say, am I going to make sure there's not, I'm 100%, no one's ever going to do that. I always say we're just one breath away from the next, incident. But Brian has such a methodical process in place. When you listen to him, he's going to be able to have a good piece of where he's got great security at children. So it's very nice for that. And then Meredith, I don't know about you guys, but anybody who's a CISO here, do you ever say, oh, that's privacy officer? Did you notice? Meredith is both privacy and security. So she can't ever go say, go see the privacy officer. She just would be pointing here. So I think she's unique in that sense because I always like, oh, that's privacy, BAS, go talk to privacy, that kind of thing. So she gets to wear both hats. But unique to Meredith is she's very passionate about empowering women in IT technology and minorities as well. And I have to tell you, I was in one forum today and I looked around and there were about 25 people in the room and there were 3 women. And a lot of times people don't notice that for some reason. My age, I always notice that. And so I do too, as well, want to join Meredith in encouraging women to really get into more into the world of IT tech and those kinds of things and security. So welcome back to this panel. So we have some questions we just wanted to start off with. And I think, feel free if you want to take a pass because we have so many questions today and the people will have some. I don't want to kind of have to feel like you have to answer every single one, but I guess the biggest topic today is ransomware. I mean, if you've not experienced it, you live in fear, maybe you will. And I'm from a post-acute care environment, long-term care, home health hospice, and when you really do get that piece, it's when you get the ransomware and you're finding out that somebody's been cooking for a while it's been coming up on their screen and then it's locking files and it's keeping people out and it's causing issues with some billing, those kinds of things. You really are thankful that you had some really good secure backups. But I think when all of us are hearing these huge hospitals that have been practicing HIPAA for a number of years are experiencing this, I guess, how are you managing threats today and how are you changing as you go forward? What are either technically some of the things you're looking at in products or just how are you approaching it differently? Because with MedStar and Hollywood Presbyterian and others, having been attacked, it makes me feel more vulnerable. I don't know about you guys, but let me just put that out there and you can respond to it if you want to start, Brian. I'll start with you.
Sure. I don't think anybody has the answer to this. And one of the things we're trying to do is get real clear on what we really care about. So I'm not too concerned about ransomware that impacts one directory because we can recover from that. So we're really taking a hard look at what are the things in our infrastructure that can make the whole place come down. So it's really refocused us around endpoints because we don't want things spreading on the endpoints. And so we look at the endpoints, what do we have there, what do we need to add? And then we've always been looking at the perimeter, but what I don't want is people coming in from the perimeter, pivoting off the perimeter, and then being able to get to everything inside. So those are sort of 2 focus areas that we have. No one's got the magic bullet for ransomware, and I've talked to a lot of vendors, and we're all dealing with it. And it's in some ways funny because it's not even HIPAA. It's I can remember the Melissa virus, right, years and years ago. I remember standing in a guy's cube that was the email guy, and he had this Christmas tree of green lights on his email servers, and somebody started Melissa virus, and one moment was like red, and the guy sprinted out of his cube, and we all said, oh, we should stop allowing attachments. And here we are, like 15, 20 years later, going, oh, ransomware, we should stop allowing attachments.
Yeah, culturally, we've gone kind of the full spectrum with ransomware. I think Meredith hit the nail on the head with training and education. It starts with your folks. We do phishing exercises. We do not publish that we're going to do them. We have 3 people that knew when we first did our first one. One of them was actually our exchange engineer because we didn't want our filtering to block the emails going out. The ironic thing is people are aware they're getting emails that contain something that they don't recognize. The first one we sent out was to our help desk, but it was from hotmail.com. So we actually had people calling our help desk saying, when did you change your help desk email to hotmail.com? So, you constantly have to be in front of them. But the tools and technology, we're constantly evaluating our tools and technology. You have to harden your perimeter. You have to have good partners engaged, and really have to pay attention to your networks globally. With the devices that come in our environment, the BYOD, it's no longer just a computer system sitting there. You have a lot of mobile devices, and it's an ongoing target, so you have to focus on it.
We got to do a lot of blocking and tackling, and I think we're going to continue to keep doing that as new versions of ransomware come out. I don't think that there's a magic bullet. I don't think that there's a software or an application or a device or anything that sits on the network that's going to help that. But I think that you have to actually exploit some of the training and awareness, because truth be told, they're using really low budget tactics to get into your organization. They're not doing very I guess, high-level things. It's really a basic comm game. We're going to send you an email. We're going to see if you're going to click on it. Again, technology is not going to stop that, and some things aren't going to make it past the filters. It's not going to always be blocked by the filters. So again, you got to go back to your people to help them to understand that clicking on that just doesn't make sense, and then help them learn what things to look for in those emails. You just can't say when you get a link, don't click on it, but a lot of times you're going to have URLs that don't look right. A lot of times you're going to have verbiage and language that doesn't look right, so you have to really help them look at some of the other things that are there as well.
Graham, do you have anything you want to add there?
It comes down to the awareness, and that's one of the biggest things that I've actually focused on at St. Elizabeth is I teach new user orientation. I go out and do lunch and runs just to meet with the people. We do the fishes as well, and now that actually goes directly to the CEO. It goes to the top. And that was the huge change in our culture is now, since we had some payroll get redirected.
Yeah.
Because people were phished. And then they logged right into the PeopleSoft system as that individual and rerouted their pay to a prepaid credit card.
You talk about 40+%, it just takes one.
One guy.
So it doesn't matter what the percentage is, it's one breach
Did
that will happen.
did this ransomware catch the C-suite attention at your facility? And if so, now, did they say to you, how are you going to prevent this, and what's your elevator speech for that?
Yes,
Of
they
course,
do.
that's what, I mean, I got a
You have a good
call.
elevator speech?
I actually got a call from the chair of the board who wanted to talk about it.
There you go.
And it was probably like on the weekend or something, and she wanted to talk about it. And I'm like, okay, well, this is new to our environment. We kind of knew it was happening and it was spreading. And we really didn't have a good answer for how we were going to address it because it was still kind of evolving. I can say that most of us that look at our work plans for 2016, in 2015, we were creating those 2016 work plans. Ransomware was not part of our scope. So this stuff has just come up. So you have to, it's back to the blocking and tackling. You got to wait for this situation to be presented, and then you have to adjust what your tactics are going to be to get yourself out of that. But one of the things also when it comes to the ransomware piece is just don't, when you're doing your test, your social engineering test, just don't look for the email version of that. You need to do phishing, which is really the voice phishing. So you need to get people on a phone, because what we found in our tests is that it was easier and they felt more comfortable saying, I'm from the help desk and your system has been infected, and if you give me your login and your password or your IP address, then we can fix all of this. And we had people delivering that information. Now it was our test, but you're going to see variations of that. It's not always going to be just an email, so you have to be diversified in that approach. And so what we found is that in our training, even though we taught people not to click on links or not to give their login and password, we never told them not to give their IP address. So now we got to revise our training. We never told them not to give the system configuration. Once the person walked through it, click here, click there, here's the configuration, tell me everything you see. We never trained them that way. So you have to be diversified in your approach as well to be able to stay ahead of the ransomware.
I would agree with that planning piece too, that none of us had this in our plans. And I think one of the things that I find when we have to switch a plan really fast, tabletops are a really good way to deal with it, because you can get a bunch of people in a room and they only have to spend an hour, and you start getting scenarios, and then you start telling what's vulnerable, and you've got your whole team together saying, okay, these are where we think the issues are. So we do a tabletop, for example. I knew we had backup and restore, but the question is, how much can we restore at once? So if we have a very widespread, what's the capacity of the restoration that we have? When would it be we're going to pay versus this? And you go do that tabletop, you learn a ton, and now you can start directing your activity on something that's going to be valuable.
Yeah, and some of those questions are valuable. I think in the ransomware world, the biggest issue is, do we pay or do we not pay? And it's interesting, I said in a briefing with the FBI, we regularly connect with them to get their perspective on things. And of course, they waffled a little bit. Initially, they were kind of open to organizations deciding to pay if they wanted to, but all of a sudden they came out with this directive that you shouldn't pay. And we just felt in the room that they weren't taking into account the operational concerns that we would have if we're Hollywood Presbyterian and we're shut down for 11 days. Guess what? We're going to pay because we have to deal with our patient population. They weren't taking that into account. So I think that you have to really start having that conversation about to pay or not to pay long before you get a screen that pops up to say you need to give me, 12,000 Bitcoins. You have to have that conversation.
That's a great point. We gotta have that conversation up front. Has everyone heard of whaling? And this goes to some of the information that Meredith had just talked about, the social engineering and the way that certain things are phrased. We were whaled, I guess you could call it, where I am, and things came in to a very nice guy in finance. And, he's just trying to help. And he wanted to get the money to the CEO. And, but had anybody who received normal emails from the CEO, they would have said, this is not from the CEO. But they went to the controller, and then, so that one was small. It worked out okay. The next one was the W-2s. Did anybody else get the W-2s? We had, but this time it went to somebody who stopped it. I don't know if you guys.
Well, what we did is because we actually have a cybersecurity analyst that looks at all of the threat intelligence, whether it's coming from the National Health ISAC or some of our partners in the state. And when we heard that was spreading, we immediately put a communication together. We do these briefs, they're called TIBs, so it's a threat intelligence brief that we put together. It's a one-pager. It talks about the threat, it talks about the impact to the organization. It gives a recommendation of what we need to do tactically to be able to shut that threat down before it gets too far in our environment. And so we sent that immediately to all of the people we thought would be targeted. So we went to the finance people. We didn't send it to the head of finance. We sent it to everyone down to the nth degree in finance in the event that they were the ones that were targeted. So I think that, again, it's that preparation. It's that process you have in place that when you find out that information, how do you disseminate it quickly to the folks that will potentially be the target of that? And that's how we got around it. So we didn't get hit. We got it, but we didn't get hit because we got the information from the right people.
Brian or Sean, did you guys have anything there? Did you want to add it?
We've got a pretty close-knit community in Cincinnati. I've got Mike here and Fred and a couple other people here that are all relatively close. And we collaborate quite often. So we meet, and if I see something, I'm picking up the phone. I'm going to call, one of the other CISOs in the area. I'm going to say, hey, try health. We're seeing this actual attack. And it happened about a month ago. We had a hospital in southern Kentucky that got hit with CryptoLocker, and we got the exact same message 10 minutes later. But we were able to actually catch it because of the collaboration, and that's why I think HIMSS and these kind of conferences are so important, especially with the job that we have to do. If we're not talking, we're already failing. Because there's so much you can share between each other.
Yeah, we learn from each other, because again, someone may get it before you get it. One of the things I'm very appreciative of with our governor, where he actually has a cyber initiative for the state of Michigan, where we do have this consortium of hospitals across the state, where we have a really robust communication strategy, so we can get before each other and start to talk about these things, and we meet on a quarterly basis, but we do have an active, phone tree. If something is happening, everybody get on this call, let's talk about it and decide how we're gonna
That's
deal
great,
with it at a
because
state
Who
level.
wants to really say, I was fished, or I was whaled and it was, no one does, but I think starting these groups and starting these conversations, that's really great. Brian, I know I talked with you up in Cleveland, and the first thing I said is I really, I'm running a small organization as a CIO, and I wear the ISO hat. I could also be the CISO, but I don't want to take that. No one does, but I don't want to take that. But you were very kind, and you suggested joining ISSA and looking at the CISSP, and I guess if you would just share that in this group a little bit, because I don't know if they are aware of that organization, and you were very helpful to me, so.
Yeah, in Central Ohio, we have a very active ISSA group. They meet, they have all kinds of presentations going on, and one of the things that they do, if anyone's interested in their Certified Information Security Professional certificate, they do a class and they break it up over 12 and 13 weeks, and each week is one of the topics, and at the end you take a test quiz, and it ends right before they give the test in Columbus. So it's a really good way to get involved in that program, meet some people in the community, and sort of take that in a little bit at a time, and I've had a number of people on my team get their certifications that way, and it's a little bit more bite-sized than the week-long, drink from the phone. So
I don't think anyone from CSOHIMSS minded me plugging that, because I think that this is the team and the group that we really need to communicate that with. So thank you. I appreciate that. I kind of want to move to one other topic and then maybe open it up for a few questions and then come back and see if there's other ones that we want to go through. But the Office of Civil Rights just came up with phase 2 for the audits for HIPAA. And I know that's pressing on, every one of you look as nervous as I do, pressing that we need to be ready for those. And those of you that have full confidence in programs in place, you're probably not as worried about that. But I guess, what are you doing to, either step up for that, or do you have something specifically you're looking at, and what steps would you recommend for the audience to take as a first step too? So.
Mock audits. You need to run yourself, it's almost doing a tabletop for the audit. You need to be able to see how you fare as a self-assessment, see how you fare with the audit criteria that's been provided. And we do that, have been doing that regularly over the last few months to make sure that we're prepared in the event that they do come in. I am of the belief that these are not random whatsoever. We can say that, but I really don't believe that they are. So especially for organizations like Henry Ford, where we've had cause for them to say, we want to audit you, I needed to be prepared the organization for that. So we've done almost like a tabletop just for the audit piece. What are we going to do when I get that letter? What are we going to do with that email? What are we going to do when we address that? So that would be my recommendation. Do some mock audits against the OCR criteria.
Anybody else?
I think, first you got to have a good relationship with the audit team. But, outside of that, I think it's critical that you continue to look at your policies and controls. As these new audits and regulations come out, they're always changing. But the first way that you protect against them is you have to have the standards and best practices already in place. And then you migrate and you adapt to them as time moves forward. If you don't have those in place and you're not reviewing them on a regular basis, you're going to get caught behind, and it's going to be too difficult to catch up.
Brian?
Just the thing I would add, I agree with the mock audits, but I would back up to go read the protocol and figure out what they're doing. And if you don't have audit background, find somebody who does and have them help you walk it through, because they'll help you figure out what's likely to happen and how they're likely to audit, because it's auditors that are doing these audits. So I think that's really helpful to have that sort of knowledge in place.
Yeah,
The other thing is we all know what they're going to focus on. They're going to focus on business associates, policies and procedures, mobile devices. So instead of overwhelming yourself with the 250 controls, go pick the 30 that you think are likely for them to be auditing on, because they can't handle all of them either. So go pick the ones that we know that they've been talking about for the last 5 years.
Yeah. And don't assume also that the OCR auditor that's been assigned to you actually understands the regulations in which they're auditing. So again, yeah, I mean, because.
She said that, just so everybody knows.
I'm saying, just don't assume that. And so again, I think your point is well taken. Look at those controls that you think are most likely going to be assessed. But you also have to be able to communicate with that auditor, and this is going to be hard because it's a desk audit. And what they're basically stating is that they're going to ask for the information, you're going to be able to provide the information. There's no clarification process that goes along there, so you have to know exactly what you're providing explains that it addresses that control that they're looking for. You won't have the ability to do clarification, and you can't assume that they know clearly the regulations that they're auditing on. So if your policies are fuzzy, probably not a good idea to send that to them, because if you wanted to clarify something, you won't have that opportunity according to what we were told. So that's what they're going to go off of, what you send.
Okay.
I wanted to build off what Brian was saying too. I mean, you look at NIST, or which is the framework we've adopted at St. Elizabeth. There's 809 controls in there. So you can't take on 809 controls in a year. I know I haven't been able to. Now I've only been in St. Louis for about a year now. So what we've done is we did exactly what you were talking about. We took the first 20 and we knocked those out. And now we're looking at the next 20. And it's just, you gotta eat it. It's like eating an elephant. You eat it a bite at a time, right? So just kind of take it slow. Don't freak out, and you'll get through it. It takes time.
Okay, I would like to kind of just take a time where you guys can ask questions now, if we could do that, because I think we've hit some really good topics, the ransomware and then the OCR audit. So does anyone have questions at this point? Yes, I thought we would. So Scott, if you don't mind, that'd be great.
Good afternoon. I'm curious if any of you, considering all of the breaches this past year and beyond, if any of you have been able to advocate for an increase in budget for privacy and security.
Can you share who you are and where you're from?
Oh, yes. My name's Peggy Kilty. I'm an inpatient medical coder with Ohio Health.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would say absolutely.
I know I did.
Last year when a lot of the breaches started being publicized and a lot of the ransomware, we already were in motion with a lot of things, but there's no doubt that it helped. But you have to change that dialogue, and when you change the dialogue at the executive level to start showing the issues and the true impact, it doesn't become a budget conversation. If I talk to the CIO now, if I talk to our CFO and the budgets that they've given unplanned in the past 24 months, they would agree now and say it was the best money that we spent. So we've absolutely increased our budget for it.
It's what I said before, ride the breach to the nth degree. So any opportunity I can take for what's happening in the environment and advocate for how we don't want to become that's what I go after in terms of budget. And some of it is going to be unplanned, because as things come up throughout the year, you have to adjust your strategy. It's not going to always be a part of the work plan. So you utilize those things to be able to advocate for the additional monies that you need. And if your executive leadership is really supportive of your program, and not because they're trying to get out of a fine status, not because they're trying to make sure we're checking off all the boxes from a compliance standpoint, but typically they're behind you because they're concerned about the reputation of their organization. That's the conversation that you need to have. Don't talk to them about fines, don't talk to them about anything else. Talk about the fact that our reputation is going to be damaged if we end up in a situation like this. And that's what really starts to resonate, especially with the board members.
Yeah, and the following up education is critical. A lot of these tools are out of sight and out of mind, and they don't see them, and they don't see the impact that the technology team will see on the dashboard. So you've got to continue to expose them to, this is the stuff that's not gotten into the system. These are the things that we're blocking.
And the risk management is the easiest way to do that. That's my advocacy directly to the board, is you go out and when you start showing them red, yellow, green, it makes sense. You know, look, if we don't do this, here's the risk. Are you okay with that? If you're okay with that, sign here. But 9 times out of 10, they're not okay with that. So if that wasn't something in the budget, it will be.